Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Paranormal Stories. First up we have, I saw the Hat Man as a child, decades before I knew it was a worldwide phenomenon. This one is from a fella who is from Mizoram in northeast India. Today I learned about the Hat Man phenomenon. And it honestly freaked me out a bit because I saw one as a kid long before I'd ever heard of it. When I was around 6 or 7 years old, my parents were doing mission work, so we moved around a lot and lived in different parts of the country. At one point, we had just moved into a small wooden cabin-like house that had been provided for us. The bathroom wasn't inside the house. It was a separate little structure right behind it. Because of that, whenever my siblings or I needed to use the bathroom at night, we'd wake one of our parents up to escort us, even though it was only a few steps away. One night, probably around 1 a.m., I woke my mom up because I needed to go. It was a clear night. This was back in the 90s, and the porch was lit by one of those fluorescent yellowish lights. After I finished, my mom said she needed to use the bathroom too, and told me to wait outside. So I was standing there by myself looking around the yard. That's when I noticed something peeking around the corner of the house. It looked like a man wearing a hat. It had a sharp jawline and was wearing a fedora-like hat. I could only see its head and hat sticking out from behind the corner. The strange thing was that he was completely black, like a silhouette or a shadow. But I know it was staring at me. There were no facial features whatsoever. The fluorescent porch light illuminated the foliage behind him, but somehow none of that light touched him. I was a bit scared, but I honestly thought it was a neighbor trying to prank me. It was common for older neighbor kids to do stuff like this, so I called out to him, no response. I called again, nothing. It didn't even flinch. It just stared at me without an eye. For some reason I decided the best course of action was to charge directly at it. As I ran toward the figure, it started getting smaller and smaller. I think that's what happened. I can't really explain. Not like it was moving away, but by the time I got close, it looked almost flat, like a 2D shadow on the ground. Then it merged with the shadow being cast by a chair on the porch and simply disappeared. I immediately turned around and ran back to my room. A few moments later, I looked again, and there was absolutely nothing there. I told my mom what I had seen. She brushed it off as imagination. Since then, I have never forgotten it. That image of the hat and black silhouette has stayed with me ever since. I'm not from the West, and as a kid in the 90s, I had never been exposed to horror characters like Freddy Krueger or anything similar. I had no reason to imagine a hat-wearing shadow person. Then today, completely by chance, I watched a YouTube video about the Hat Man phenomenon and discovered that people all over the world describe seeing almost the exact same thing. I'm not saying it was supernatural. It could have been a trick of the light, a child's imagination, or something else entirely. I got goosebumps when I watched that video describing the phenomenon, though. Okie story number 2, knocking at my bedroom door at 3 a.m. I swear to God, unless it's Scarlett Johansson, they can fuck off. By Crowd S. About 2 months ago, on Easter morning around 3 a.m., I had an experience that I still think about almost every night. I live with just my mom and stepdad. They're extremely security-conscious people. The house has motion cameras everywhere, multiple locks on every door, those pull things that bolt against the door, and generally feels very secure. My bedroom is in the basement, and my parents are always in bed by around 10:30 p.m. That night I was up late, playing League of Legends with friends. I had been gaming since around midnight, and everything felt completely normal until 3 a.m. Out of nowhere I heard 3 loud knocks on my bedroom door. The knocks were clear and deliberate. 3 knocks, then silence. At first, I assumed it was my mom or stepdad coming downstairs to tell me I was being too loud. I even heard what sounded like footsteps walking away afterward, so I didn't think much of it. I lowered my voice and started whispering to my friends instead, so that my mom and stepdad could get to bed, if in fact I was being too loud while playing. But 15 minutes after, it happened again. 3 knocks. This time I waited a few seconds and opened the door, expecting to see my stepdad or mom standing there. Nobody. Just a completely dark family room. I figured maybe my stepdad had knocked and already gone back upstairs. So I shrugged it off and returned to my game. But it was weird regardless, because neither my mom or stepdad have told me to be quiet in person. Sometimes over texts, but never this late, and never physically because they're pretty old and like staying in their room. Then it happened again. Roughly 12 minutes later, 3 more knocks. I opened the door immediately. Again, nobody there, just darkness. At that point, I closed and locked my bedroom door. Now I was genuinely pooping bricks out of fear. My mom and stepdad aren't the type to play jokes, especially in the middle of the night, and they're both in their late 60s. My mind started going to worst-case scenarios. Maybe someone had somehow gotten into the house. Maybe a friend was pulling an elaborate prank. Maybe it was a burglar. But the knocking continued. Every 10 to 15 minutes, always 3 knocks. This went on for nearly 2 hours. Then around 5 a.m. it happened again, but a little bit differently. 3 knocks, a pause of about 20 seconds. Then another set of 3 knocks, much faster and more aggressive than before. Like someone was really wanting to get inside my bedroom. By this point, I was completely freaked out. The strangest part is that my friends on Discord heard it too. Every time it happened, my microphone picked it up. They thought I was messing with them because of how often I was panicking about it. Finally, at 5 a.m., I ended up calling my mom. My friends had told me to do that earlier, but I didn't want to wake her up if she was indeed sleeping. My stepdad especially gets in a pissy mood if I wake him up. Either way, I just said screw it and called her anyway. I asked her if she or my stepdad had been coming downstairs all night. They hadn't. Both of them had been asleep the entire time. At that point, I was convinced someone was inside the house, so I asked them to come downstairs to search with me. We checked every room. Nothing. No signs of anyone being there. Then we reviewed the security cameras. The footage showed me going into my room earlier that night, and later showed my parents coming downstairs when I called them. During the entire period when knocking occurred, there was absolutely nothing on any of the motion cameras. No movement, no person, nothing. That was the moment we started wondering what happened. My mom said I was as white as a ghost when she came down to check the house. We both ended up praying over the house afterward, and since that night, or morning, it never happened again. Even so, whenever I'm awake around 3 a.m., I still find myself thinking about it, and I get chills every single time just thinking about it or even typing this out. What's strange is that I never felt an overwhelming sense of evil or danger, but I just didn't feel any sense of peace either. It just felt neutral, unknown. To this day, I have no explanation. What do you think it was? I think it was a ghost. And does anyone know if the repeated pattern of 3 knocks has any symbolism or significance? I have only had one other encounter with something otherworldly. It was a spiritual encounter with something very Christ-like, and had an otherworldly and indescribable amount of love for me, that I felt but could never express or describe, no matter how much I'd like to, and is my most cherished experience in my entire life. But yeah, Easter morning 2 months ago was quite wild for me. Story number 3. Someone Tell Me What's Going On by Mountain Spook. So this happened back in 2019, and it still bothers me years later. I've never really believed in ghosts or anything like that, and I still question it. But this whole experience has definitely rattled me. My partner at this time and I moved into a small detached unit on a block with one other unit. It was pretty normal from outside, and inside it had some odd quirks. When you walked in the front door, you entered this weird little garden lounge that seemed to be part of the original building. From there you stepped up to the kitchen, then straight through to the lounge room. Off to the left were spare bedrooms, and to the right was a badly built porch. You turned left at the kitchen. You'd pass the main bathroom and enter the master bathroom, which had a small ensuite. Walking through that room led to a small extra room that was clearly an extension, even though it used the same brick as the rest of the house. The strange thing was the floor. It had these intricate blue tiles that clashed with the grey tiles everywhere else. One morning around 9 a.m., I was lying in bed with my girlfriend. The master bedroom shared a wall with a garage. We heard a tapping sound that I assumed was a pipe or something. As a joke, she tapped back, and it tapped back again. I tried tapping in a bit of a rhythm, and it copied that too. We both took turns, and every time it matched what we did. Eventually we got bored and just assumed it was plumbing or something. Sentient plumbing? Later that day it hit me that the wall was just solid brick. So it was part of a later addition, and there shouldn't have been any pipes in it. A few weeks later I was home alone. It was about 8 p.m. and completely dark. I was studying in my home office, which was one of the spare bedrooms off the lounge. My girlfriend was out with a friend, and I was expecting her back soon. I heard the front door open, then footsteps through the kitchen and into the living room. I called out to her, but got no response. I figured maybe she wasn't in the mood to talk and just wanted to sit on the couch, so I kept studying. Then the footsteps came into the office. Right next to my ear, I heard a man's voice say my name in a harsh, gravelly tone. I spun around thinking it was someone messing with me, but the room was completely empty. At the time I was doing shift work, so I told myself I was just overtired. About a week later, we were sitting on the couch watching TV around 8 p.m. Both office doors were open, and from where we were sitting you could see straight out of her office window into the backyard. I got up to grab a drink and saw a man's face outside the window just looking in. He looked like a white, bald man. I can only apologize. The area wasn't the best, so I assumed someone was checking the place out. I grabbed the torch and ran outside to look around, but there was no one there. A few days later, again around 8 p.m., we were lying in bed on our phones. Out of nowhere, the sliding doors to the porch started making the insanely loud, chaotic noise, like someone was trying to force them open. It honestly sounded like what I imagine an earthquake would be like. We both ran out to the lounge and looked at the doors. They were still locked, and everything on the porch was completely undisturbed. That's when my girlfriend told me it had actually happened a few times before, both during the day and at night when I'd been at work. Not long after that, our relationship started to fall apart. We ended up breaking up, but stayed on decent terms. We broke the lease and planned to move out over the next few weeks. Nothing else really happened during that time. Then came moving day. By that night, around 8 p.m. again, everything was out except for the last few things. I went back alone to grab them and do a final check. As soon as I walked in, I could smell something warm and familiar. It was beef bourguignon, which was my ex's favorite thing to cook. That's when I felt like something wasn't right. I rushed through the house, grabbed the last few things, and threw them in the back of my truck. As I stepped back and looked at the place to make sure all the lights were off, I glanced at the tall window next to the front door. Standing there was a tall, dark, slender figure, clear as day. I got in the truck, started it, and drove off straight away. I don't think I've ever taken a deeper breath in my life. I never went back. It still bothers me to this day. What the hell was going on? Story number 4. Something weird happened in my neighborhood by Midnight Serenity. Hello, everyone. I, 24 female, live in a pretty small and secluded town in Oklahoma. My neighborhood is extremely secluded, a long gravel road in a twisted horseshoe shape, and it's off the highway. However, it's very easy to miss because the entrances are hidden by pretty dense trees, and we even have a large creek that runs through the backyards of some of the properties. Each property is usually around an acre or two, depending on where they are. I don't know most of my neighbours. We all mostly keep to ourselves, aside from some family friends that live across the road from us. Out where I live, we have very little light pollution. I can easily see the stars. We also have all sorts of critters. Wild boar, bobcats, mountain lions, coyotes, owls, bats, roadrunners, armadillos, deer, possums, and raccoons. I'm sorry, I can't hear an armadillo mentioned before without thinking of that Dime advert. I likes armadillos, crunchy on the outside, smooth on the inside. Anyway, let's just get on with the story. That's just a me thing. Dear, where was I? Raccoons. Okay, I've even seen a fox and her cub running around my neighborhood in the very early hours of the morning. I actually get those here sometimes, little foxes running around. At night, in the warmer months, we always hear owls, cicadas, crickets, and frogs going nuts. Now, I'm a night owl. I go to bed at 5:30 in the morning. One night I decided to finally put a roof up on my dog run, since my almost 3-year-old dog had become quite the escape artist, and had figured out how to jump the wall of the run. It was in between 2 and 3 in the morning, and I was just out there putting the roof paneling on the run. It didn't take me long to notice that it was completely silent. No owls hooting, the coyotes weren't howling, even the cicadas and crickets were quiet. There wasn't even a breeze. I had been outside plenty of times in the middle of the night, and I could always hear some type of critter. Neighborhood dogs usually go nuts at the smallest sounds in the middle of the night, but even they were quiet. In the silence I heard a whistle, not a bird, a human whistle. It was 3 notes, all extremely low and barely audible, but close to my property. It sounded like it came from the property behind me, but nobody lives on that property. The person who lived there died years ago, and it has yet to be sold because the house is unlivable, and the property is a mess. Trash and dog bones everywhere. Like the bones of dogs. He was a horrible dog owner. I called the police on him multiple times for animal abuse. We don't have animal welfare of any kind out here. The dogs were either dying of infection, illness, or from being killed and eaten by other dogs. The owner of the home just sends people out to work on the house and yard, getting rid of trash and cutting the brush down during the day. Well, I think we can all be glad that the horrible man that was living there is gone. And whatever was whistling kept repeating it every few minutes. The same tune over and over again. I initially froze when I heard it. The hair on the back of my neck stood up and I got goosebumps. Every single alarm bell in my head was going off. Now, I know Native American folklore. I've listened to the rules of Appalachia. I don't whistle at night. I refuse to. I knew that if I panicked and ran inside, whatever it was would know I heard it and was afraid. I didn't answer it. I didn't ask, "Who's there?" like every white person in every horror movie. I didn't even turn around to look in the direction it came from. Instead, I decided to ignore it completely. I forced myself to finish the dog run, listening to that damn whistle every few minutes until I finished, gathered up my tools, and went inside. This isn't the only weird thing that's happened either. One night I was just chilling in bed, scrolling on my phone. I want to preface that I was not asleep, I had not been asleep, and I was not dreaming. My bedroom has 4 different windows, one on the front wall of my bedroom that faces the front yard, 2 that are on the back wall that have frosted glass that face my backyard. There's one in my bathroom that's on the side of the house facing the side yard. One of the windows on my back wall is directly above my bed, and I keep a black towel tacked over it to block the light. I was minding my own business when I heard something speak outside my window. Not someone, something. It didn't sound like it was directly outside my window, but maybe a few feet away, close to my barn. It's not a barn built for animals. We actually use it for storage. My great-granddad built it. It didn't sound right. It was extremely distorted. It sounded like some creature trying to mimic what a human sounded like. I have never heard that sound come from a human being's mouth. And I've been around people with speech impediments, and people that have cerebral palsy, and have had strokes, and have messed up speech. The voice was low, almost guttural. I laid there listening to it, trying to make out what it was saying, but it was so distorted that I couldn't. I turned my lights off and looked outside. Like frosted glass is like a film over the actual window, but it doesn't fit the entire window. So I looked through a part where there wasn't any frosting. There was nothing there. My neighborhood had some unfortunate events recently. One of my neighbors died recently in a horrific house fire. His house not only caught fire, but it exploded. Jesus. He was a very nice man. He was a retired art professor. He also wasn't all there mentally, extremely odd and a bit cooky, and he smelled really bad. His hair went down to his waist, and he was filthy and matted. He never bathed. He was a hoarder. His property is covered in random furniture, cars, decorations, sculptures, trash, etc. What happened was he had several space heaters and a kerosene heater. Something close to one of his heaters caught fire, and it caused the kerosene tanks to explode. He was inside the house when it happened. His property was also covered in cane, and his driveway was hidden between what was essentially a cane forest. When I was young, he would make sculptures out of the cane, and then have huge ragers where he'd burn them down. He had a literal stage in his backyard where bands could play. Cane is extremely flammable. His entire property was engulfed in minutes. His dog escaped, but he didn't. The fire department found his remains at his front door, and his legs were gone. His legs were never found. The odd part, his property had 2 houses. Someone else lives in the other house. The entire property went up in flames, but the other house and all the cars on the property were untouched. They didn't even have smoke damage. I've witnessed other strange things. My ex-boyfriend and I saw a huge ball of light fall out of the sky directly into my yard, but when we both ran to find where it landed, it wasn't there. We didn't hear an impact, and nobody else in the area reported seeing anything similar. I'm not schizophrenic. I don't have delusions or hallucinations. I've only hallucinated a few times in my life. Twice I've had fever dreams, and once was because my insomnia flared up horribly, and I spent 2 straight weeks only having microsleeps, in which I started having auditory and visual hallucinations. But I was able to differentiate between my hallucinations and reality. When these things happened, however, I was not sleep-deprived and was wide awake and in my right mind. Horrible things have happened in my neighborhood. Horrible people have lived here. People have lived and died here, good and bad. I don't know if any of those things correlate to what I experienced. I refuse to interact with whatever these things are. Thankfully, I have no activity inside my home, but I'm incredibly freaked out. I want my home to be peaceful, and I'm scared that something is going to try to lure me to it. And the 5th and final story for this video is The Man in the Rocking Chair by Rhiannon Fox. When I was around 10 years old, my mom took me to a charity shop, and there was this white rocking chair that, for some reason, I just had to have. I know, creepy, right? At the time, I didn't think rocking chairs were creepy at all. I was only 10. My mom bought it for me, and I was so happy. My mom and dad put it in my bedroom, and I'd be sitting rocking in it every day. My brother wanted it too, but I'd asked for it first. A few weeks later, I went to bed. At that age, I was scared of the dark, so I always made sure the landing light was left on, and my bedroom door was open so a bit of light came into the room. You could still see around my bedroom even with the light off. During the night, I woke up and heard the rocking chair creaking and rocking. I was facing the wall, so I assumed it was my brother because he liked sitting in it too. I remember saying, "Sam, get out of my room, I'm trying to sleep." There was no response. The chair just kept rocking and creaking. I turned over and instantly froze. There was a man in the chair, but he didn't have a body. It was just a head. He had dark brown hair, brown eyes, and he was staring straight at me. I've never been so scared in my life. I wanted to scream for my mom and dad, but I couldn't. I felt like my body wouldn't let me move or make a sound. I just lay there staring at him, with the duvet pulled up over my mouth while he stared back at me. In my head, I started counting from 10 to 1. I told myself when I got to 1, I'd pull the pillow over my head so I didn't have to look at him anymore. I got to 1 and couldn't do it, so I started again and again and again. I must have counted down from 10 to 1 over 100 times before I finally worked up the courage to pull the pillow over my head and squeeze my eyes shut. I never looked back at the chair again that night. Eventually I fell asleep, but I remember waking up the next morning feeling really strange. It's hard to explain, but I just didn't feel like myself that day. I told my parents what happened, and they ended up taking the rocking chair out of my room. Honestly, it scared the shit out of me. The weirdest part came years later. I was in my Nana's house, and we were looking through old family photos. We didn't go there very often, so I had never really looked through them before. I picked up one photo and immediately felt my stomach drop. It was him. The same dark hair, the same eyes, the same face. I asked who the man in the photo was. It was my granddad. I'd never met him, and had never seen the picture of him before. He died when my man was 14 years old after taking his own life. I've never looked through those photos again. To this day, I don't know what I saw that night. What I've always found strange is that whatever I saw didn't have a body, it was just a head. Years later, when I saw that photograph of my grandpa for the first time, the resemblance was what shocked me the most. Has anyone else ever experienced anything similar? Have you ever seen what looked like a person or a ghost, but only part of them rather than a full figure? I've heard stories of shadow people and full apparitions, but I've never heard many people describe seeing just a head. I'd genuinely be interested to hear other people's experiences or theories. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Big thanks to everyone who allowed me to use their stories. If you'd like to support the channel, you can sign up for my Patreon page, which is linked down in the description. $1 or more gets you early access to all the videos at once on Monday. There's also a link to my merchandise store over on Teespring, as well as my Discord server and my Threads account. And my email is kingofthecities@gmail.com if you need to contact me for any reason. That's everything for now, so until next time, thank you very much for watching, and take very good care of yourself.